Restraint is mistaken for weakness by those who count only visible blows. Courts have always known otherwise. In 17th century France, Richelieu made an undrawn threat govern men who would have resisted an open strike. That silence altered the room. The setting matters. Paris under Louis XIII was candlelight on polished floors, chapel smoke, sealed letters, and corridors where servants heard more than ministers admitted. Every arch and antechamber taught the same lesson. Proximity to the center was survival, and distance was a form of exile. Beyond the palace stood provinces with old feudal habits, fortified towns, ambitious governors, and nobles who mistook inherited privilege for permanent leverage. France looked unified on maps. It behaved like a chessboard mid-game, with pieces loyal to the crown by language and to themselves by instinct. Richelieu wanted a monarchy difficult to blackmail. Louis XIII wanted obedience without perpetual war against his own grandees. The nobles wanted access, immunity, and old exemptions. Each depended on the others for legitimacy, revenue, and military order. Mutual need kept the curtain standing. The Queen Mother Marie de Medici carried influence, memory, and resentment in equal measure. Gaston, the king's brother, carried dynastic danger simply by existing. Court factions gathered around both like tides around stone. Their fear was plain. Irrelevance arrives before ruin and often causes it. Richelieu himself was no duelist in a romance. He was a cleric with ledgers, agents, and a patient appetite for sequence. Machiavelli would have recognized the design. Clausewitz would have recognized the concentration of memes. Arendt would have noticed the lowly individuals produced when old intermediaries were broken. The law of restraint begins with a simple distortion. Immediate force settles one dispute while teaching every witness the exact limit of authority. Force withheld keeps the limit uncertain. That uncertainty enlarges power in the imagination first. Pure leverage. Rooms reward what preserves order at the lowest visible cost. A public purge creates martyrs, panic, and factions rehearsing their own funerals. A delayed punishment lets each observer write a private ending for himself. The one who hesitates appears calm. The anxious spend themselves. Information moves unevenly in such rooms. Richelieu never needed everyone afraid at once. He needed enough people unsure of what he knew, whom he favored, and when he might act. Consent then becomes architectural. Men align themselves to avoid becoming the example. Restraint also flatters vanity. When a rival is left standing after insolence, he often mistakes postponement for victory. He speaks more freely. He binds himself to bolder allies. The record becomes thicker. When judgment finally arrives, the rune calls it necessity. Notice the pattern. Consider the day of the Dupes in 1630. Marie de Medici believed Richelieu finished. Courtiers leaned toward the setting sun, because courts adore early funerals. Richelieu did not answer with theatrical retaliation. He waited for the king's private decision to harden. Delay selected the loser. That pause did several things at once. It denied his enemies the drama of open combat. It let them reveal their confidence in public placements and whispered commitments. It protected Louis XIII from looking conquered by a minister's temper. The price would fall elsewhere, and heavily. When the reversal came, it came with the chill of administration. Exile, dismissal, confiscation, narrowed access, no battlefield chorus, no triumphant charge. Courtiers who had wagered on Marie paid with office and future. She paid with estrangement. The kingdom paid with deeper centralization and fewer buffers. Richelieu repeated the pattern with aristocratic resistance and Huguenot strongholds, though never as a single gesture. He could negotiate, delay, encircle, and then strike through state machinery once alternatives had exhausted themselves. The audience saw patience first. By then, resistance had already grown expensive. The bill always arrives in the third act. Local liberties shrank. Independent centers of loyalty were dismantled. Families tied to provincial protections lost bargaining power they had treated as birthright. Ordinary subjects paid in taxes and conscription. Because central states rarely expand on elegance alone. The strategist pays too, though official portraits conceal it. A man who governs by reserve must live inside suspicion, counting implications like coins in low light. Friendship thins, admiration becomes instrumental. Iris Murdoch might say the moral vision narrows when persons become pieces, arranged for stability. History also edits out the clerks, messengers, wives, servants, and minor officers who absorb the shock of elite restraint. When great men refrain from open violence, lesser people often endure the administrative version. Dismissed households, seized estates, stalled petitions, vanished names in parish records. Someone always underwrites composure. The wider pattern survives because institutions still reward deferred force. In boardrooms, ministries, and private alliances, a person who can act yet abstains acquires a peculiar gravity. Others begin negotiating with consequences that have not occurred. The burden then shifts to the most dependent people nearby. Years of watching this have left a dry impression. The room rarely respects purity, it respects calibration. Those who see clearly become less surprised and less comfortable, because every withheld blow casts a longer shadow than the hand itself. Clarity has a temperature. It is cold. Study the pattern and the room becomes legible. And the room will read you instead. Power unused can preserve peace, and it can suffocate a world by inches. Until next time, stay sharp.